Ah, here I am. Yep, video. Yeah, okay, so I saw a couple of videos. Well, I saw one. Anyway, part of one, most of one. That David guy, who used to be, can't remember, Scottish guy, did the video game channel and stuff. Well, anyway, I hadn't seen a video of his in a long time. He's got a new channel called davidmercudo.com or something. And, so anyway, he was having a conversation with Fake Sagan. And Fake Sagan is apparently creating some sort of think tank for, I don't know what exactly, his let's all wear bandanas thing. No, I don't want to trivialize it. Look, the idea of getting away from this whole nationalism thing is a good idea. The New World Order, one world government, well, that's been completely slandered by, the rich elite who just want, one world slavery. They just want to standardize their capacity to exploit labor everywhere, that kind of thing. They want to give us the freedom of NAFTA, free trade. Yeah, the freedom to work for no wages. I love it. Anyway, this whole idea that you can do anything without government is stupid. So to call it statist, if you argue for rules, is just stupid, But yeah, I mean, I obviously I really have always, for like as long as I can remember, had very little use for the idea of states in the United States. I thought, well, let's just be one nation. Let's just be the United People of America. Yeah, that sounds good. United People of America. Because states are completely unproductive. I mean, they just find stupid excuses to compete with each other for stupid things like, let's see if we can seduce more rich people to live in our state. So we'll give them huge tax breaks so they'll live in our state and waste their money on creating their fake jobs in our state. They're fake. They'll spend the money stupidly in our state instead of spending money stupidly in that guy's state. I mean, this kind of competition is just so corrosive and destructive. So you can certainly see that. And the idea that, we should be able to write a human constitution is really not complicated. I mean, obviously our constitution is a big pile of crap. I mean, all men are created equal. Well, except for the ones born to the rich people, and except the ones born disabled, and except, we can go right on down the list, right? So that's just a big fat lie. And certainly a lie when it was written, because, all men certainly weren't given any recognition of their equality. And certainly women weren't included, so it should say all people of our fine United People country. It could have said something. I'm just saying it's badly written, okay? I mean, yeah, some of the words are nice, but it's just badly written. Yeah, I mean, it's a crayon drawing of what a human guide document should look like, a human performance manual, a human definition of your responsibilities, whatever you want to call it. But that's the idea of it, right? Is to outline your responsibilities. It's just to say, these are your responsibilities. Do this shit or we're going to beat the crap out of you. There, not complicated. But the fact that we should have that internationally, I mean, we should write it, unilaterally. So that might be the first chore for Fake Sagan, is to write his version of an international constitution. Come up with the document. Produce the document. Here's our international constitution. This is the crap. This is the stuff that we think life is. And this is the guidelines through which we're going to interact with each other. And if you can't meet these simple guideposts, you're the enemy. We're not going to do business with you, and we're not going to play with you. We're not going to let you over our house for ice cream. I mean, fuck you. And that's sort of how we have to live. We have to try to get underneath that kind of guidance, and certainly would have to explain, how you do your voting thing and how you do your enforcement of the law thing, and it's going to have to provide strict accountability, because we know that you can't put this in the hands of these politician things, these liars. So, you have to have some sort of, almost draconian code of conduct for a public servant, somebody who works for the machine. One wrong step and you just beat the living shit out of them. Anyway, that's a separate from the bigger picture I'm trying to get to here. And the bigger picture is I think it's got to include all of these ideas of what it is to try to get to this all men are born with entitlement to a fair game and to justice. There, I wrote the first piece of crap in the Constitution. There it is. And that this inheritance crap is bullshit. This Head Start cheat shit is bullshit. Nepotism is bullshit. Nepotism is as bad as nationalism. I mean, if you can't understand that, you're really dumb. Because there's absolutely no difference. So if you're going to be against nationalism, you've got to be against nepotism. Because the psychology is exactly the same. There's absolutely no distinction. We attach to things, and we have to understand that attachment is subjective and it can't be written into law. We don't want to write subjective preference into law. That is stupid. Into human governance, let's put it that way. There has to be acknowledgement of our subjective nature, but you can't placate it. You can't feed it. And that's all you're doing when you give this nepotism thing any traction at all. A human is a human, no matter who gave birth to it. No matter who's raising it, no matter what, it's a human. It's always a human and should be treated equally as a human. And if you're going to have a game and you're going to throw them all into an arena and say now struggle with each other, to gain possession of the world and beat each other up with it, exploit the fuck out of each other, small print each other. If you're going to play this fucking game, then you should be playing it with fair rules. I mean, it's just common. No, it isn't common, but it's just the simplest of logic. Again, I'll make my point that no one can contradict, no one could ever come up with a counter argument. But every game we create, that we invent it with fairness built in, with an attempt to create perfect justice, to do it right, to always make it fair. That's the prime directive of the game, is to create fairness. And here we have the biggest game, and you assholes say, I see no need for fairness. No, my kids are special. Fuck you. I mean, it's just stupid. It's just ludicrous. On its face, absolute nonsense. Has to be called absolute nonsense. Alright, so the second part of this I wanted to get to, specific to David, is that, he professes to be religious in some way, a theist of some kind. And he's well, I don't hold it against atheists that they're atheists, but some atheists hold it against me for being a theist. And of course I'm going to hold it against you. I mean, what reliability? How can I count on your judgment? You've just said that God is on the logical table, the reasonable table. God. A fantasy story about a fate-built character, is on the rational table. Well, if you put that on the rational table, why couldn't people put all kinds of other ludicrous nonsense on the table? How you doing? There's no point in arguing that you can't argue that somebody else's belief system is fallible, that their racism is wrong, or their nepotism, or their nationalism is wrong, if you're saying something as ludicrous as God exists is right. So you don't have any credibility. You're useless to the cause. Because if you're going to be in the argument, then any kind of wacky theory of life is somebody could put on the table. Because compared to your God theory, that theory is going to be just as valid, just as made up, just as fucked, just as logically incoherent. So that's the problem. You can't, you just can't do it. I mean, there's a gross hypocrisy in saying, let's be rational about nationalism and its corrosiveness, but let's be totally irrational about something even more perhaps important, which is our purpose in existing on this planet. Our creation, our origins, what's running the game we're playing. I mean, why should I even give a fuck? Why would I even worry about how we're playing the game if I believe something created the game? Something brilliant was the instigator. I would assume that the brilliant thing would know I'm in trouble and would be doing something to eradicate it, get me out of trouble. So why the fuck would I even worry about anything if I really believed in this God crap? This just doesn't go anywhere, as there's no rational continuity in playing that game. Just looking about and such. Puddles. I'm always looking at puddle. Anyway, damn that noise. That's probably the best angle for the noise. So anyway, so I like David, but that's sort of a non-starter for the intellectual arena. You just can't walk into an intellectual arena, a logic arena, if you're blighted with the burqa of religion. No one can take you seriously then. Your reliability is just automatically suspect. And certainly, you can make arguments and all that stuff, but I'm just saying you're just vulnerable to somebody saying, well, why isn't my wacky theory okay? I mean, you have a wacky theory. Why can't I have one? And you're not going to really have an argument for that. Anyway, so I guess I'll go back to the subject of what we are as humans, and it really isn't hard to understand us, to understand what we need. And I think we need more than just raw fairness and justice, but that's a good start, right? Just some simple definitions of it, and understanding the overt breaking of those rules of privilege and benefits, and not to acknowledge the cheats, and not to do what we can to even the score and all of that crap. But some of this game has got to be about responsibility again. So, I think an international constitution has to deal with the rights of people to blackmail society with babies, to create babies that require care and attention that they don't have the means to provide. One person's reproductive choice can't be a mess that some other person has to clean up, as that's not fair or just. But it's going to be really hard to write a constitution that doesn't trespass on notions of freedom. It has to. You just can't have absolute freedom to be an asshole. I'm not going to give you the right to be an asshole. I'm not going to live with people who will torture animals for their entertainment. I won't do it. Not voluntarily. I'm not going to live under a system that says that's okay. It's your entitlement. Fuck that. It's not your entitlement. Just as it's not your entitlement to have 10 kids you can't properly feed and mentally nurture. Fuck you. It's not your entitlement. So these are hard issues that have to be put in to some sort of blanket dome of rationality that we're going to try to contain the human race in. But I still think you're going to have a hard time doing it. You're going to have a hard time breaking these barriers, because they're not just about, the borders aren't just arbitrary. A lot of them are. I mean, they're just old and antique borders. But they have grown into borders between intelligence and ignorance. There's a big correlation. Some borders, you cross the border and, knowledge base drops, whatever, 5,000 quantas of intelligence. I mean, it's just a fact, because they're not nurtured. There is no infrastructure. There's no anything except their, idiotic, ignorant notions of existence. So I guess that's going to be part of the problem, is there's no way to be neutral if you're going to have a rational document on subjects that like fundamentalist religion. You're not allowed to keep your kids ignorant. It can't be part of the document. It can't be part of the governing precept that you're allowed to brainwash your kid. That's bullshit. It violates justice and fairness. Anyway, it is interesting, just the mission statement of writing a bigger and better Constitution. Jefferson was smart. He did good work for his time, but it's not a great foundation for a democracy. The democracy was built for stagecoaches, not computers. And the concepts have too much, the mechanisms have too many sell-offs and trade-offs. The whole existence of the Electoral College was just bribery. And it's a bribery we can't keep paying for. It breaks one man, one vote. It destroys the character, the very character of democracy. And because it was just something to placate states to become part of the United States. And it was just bribery, that's all it was. And it's time to stop paying the bribe. Stop paying the extortion. Yep. Anyway, enough of a video, I think. Oh, damn. Kids, again. How dare kids use my pool. Alright. Anyway, till next time. And such. Alright, figured I'll add some on. Yeah, I was just saying game theory. But in a more positive way, like not game theory in terms of the the intellectual description of game theory in terms of trading off self-interest, but just this idea that we can sort of understand life, what's happening here, and that the game is this, like some civilizations, they cure the problem of, the problem between men and women by having arranged marriages, and it works for some people. I mean, it works for people institutionalized into that institution, right? So I mean, you're just basically trying to say, what's the best game we can make? Game Generica, where we can keep it as simple as possible, the simplest of rules, and just allow people some latitude in terms of what kind of game they're going to play. Some individual variation on the game, as long as it doesn't, impinge on other people. Like there's sort of a problem in Europe. I would call it a problem. It would be a problem for me. Like say if your country says no to nuclear power, and the country right next door says yes. So you could be like a Germany and say no to nuclear power, and your neighbor France could have a nuclear power plant right on the border, and that might piss you off because they've assigned a risk onto you that you chose not to be exposed to. And these are the kind of problems that are created. That can be they can turn into real resentments. And they're going to have all kinds of problems, just because of all the money. There's countries that are in huge debt. The people that hold that debt are going to want to get paid. They're not going to be able to get paid. There's going to be lots of problems coming up, between people because of the latitude they've had to sort of step on each other, to neglect each other's rights, or whatever you want to call it, to play bad group games. And so I guess that's the fail, is once you start having groups, it's a different kind of game. Once gang warfare, once gang, building building an arena for gangs is different than building an arena for individual humans. I guess that's sort of what we're down to, is that we've sort of constructed a world where gangs are interacting rather than individuals are interacting. And it's sort of, the idea should be is that we all can assign risk to our existences, or take our own chances and do all this kind of stuff without stepping on each other. But this is where it gets complicated, like I said, because I wouldn't want to live under an international constitution that gave people the right to exploit animals for the purpose of entertainment. I don't even know if I'm too comfortable with allowing people to raise animals for food or anything else, but this using them for entertainment is bullshit. And all these other little things where we're going to step on each other's rights. Again, you don't have a right to have somebody abuse children right in front of your eyes. It's a normal person isn't going to find that acceptable, to have some sort of draconian punishment. Like if a country actually punished children for the sins of the father or something like that, it'd be really hard for rational people to accept that, to watch it and say it's okay. Or even the slave trading, selling children, all these other kind of things. They'd just be obnoxious, too obnoxious. But anyway, ideally, you want to have enough structure that we keep people from screwing each other over in overt ways, but we also can't offend people too deeply. You can't deeply offend what people value. And that's where it's going to get really hard. It's difficult. It's like obscenity even. Where should the line be drawn? Does everybody have to construct or conform their behavior to the consumption of children? Should all television that might offend a child or might harm them be banned? Just because some parents can't handle the responsibility of controlling access. It does get messy. A lot of messy. But I think there's, if we made a list of the top 100 things, a human needs, the real hardcore stuff, the basic stuff, where we need a fair and reasonable game, that we might be able to do enough with those 100 that people would be willing to let go of the lesser offenses, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. So there's so many of these concepts. They're dueling just popped back into my head, because as bad as it was in terms of you have this harsh, excessive penalty, there was a certain perfection in this idea. Hey, how you doing? Hey, pup. It's great value in the idea that